where my thoughts escaping, home, where my music's playing, home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. Closer to my dream.
Welcome back to Real East Savvy. I'm really proud today. I have a returning guest, second time, Marc Morial. Thanks for joining me on WTOB 96.3 FM in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. If you're listening on the AM, it's 980. How you doing today, Marc?
Hey, man, it's great to be with you. And thank you for having me again. And greetings and good day to your listening audience. Always good to be in a meaningful discussion about important issues. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to get off. Last week, I had a former regional administrator who was a friend of mine from the Trump administration. We had the conversation about the 80-20 rule. Sometimes you have agreements on 80%, sometimes 20. And, you just avoid the hot button issues because at the end of the day, you start thinking, looking at the person like, well, how could you even think like this?
Mm-hmm.
So in preparation for this interview, Marc, I assure you that during the course of this conversation, I'm not going to say anything about the Saints, the Pelicans, or anything else athletic that comes out of New Orleans. Other than that, sir, I wonder.
Deal. It's a deal. Okay, it's a deal. But I'm always ready to mix it up about sports. So
yes, sir. I know it. So I'm getting right into the housing aspect, and I'd like to talk to you. For those that don't know, the Urban League every year has a state of Black America, and a portion of that, there's a portion that deals specifically with the state of Black housing. I'm going to kick that conversation off as we're just wrapped up in administration, moving into a new administration. I'm going to ask you about Ben Carson and the legacy that he left as Secretary of HUD.
Chris, Ben Carson, the National Urban League honored Ben Carson in 2003 and 2004, around that period, for his accomplishments as a neurosurgeon. And he built a reputation as a leading neurosurgeon. It never connected to me that Ben Carson would want to be Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, given his background. And it to some extent reflected sometimes stereotypes about the Department of Housing and Urban Development, that, quote, it's the agency that you appoint a Black secretary to. And so I think that Ben, that the administration and the President Trump did him a disservice by appointing him to a position for which his background did not adequately prepare him. I think he should have been Surgeon General. He should have been Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He should have been the head of the CDC or the NIH or some agency, because I don't think you do the person or the nation a service by appointing them to a position that their background doesn't necessarily prepare them to do. And so the legacy is that it was during Ben Carson's tenure at HUD that the disparate impact rule was set aside by the administration, something that those of us in the justice and equity and civil rights communities in the cities had worked long and hard to get Obama to promulgate a fair housing rule with teeth and muscle and strength. And unfortunately, it was repealed. What I am looking forward to is a new HUD under the leadership of Marcia Fudge, who was approved by the House Banking Committee just, I guess, last week. And I think what HUD needs is a high-profile secretary, because what HUD is not only an agency, but it's a platform to speak to housing, to speak to urban conditions and urban issues. And if I would offer my own point of view, the most effective HUD secretaries were Jack Kemp, who had a platform and a point of view on issues of economic equity and poverty. Henry Cisneros, who came to HUD after serving as the mayor of San Antonio. And I think Andrew Cuomo, who followed him, were, I think, the strongest secretaries with whom I've had to work. In my public career, I've had to work with every HUD secretary since Kemp, who served in the 1990s. And it was on his watch that some new programs started. So it's so critical that we understand HUD and the Department of Housing and Urban Development for what it does, but also for what it is as a place where we need a spokesperson. We need someone with political gravitas. We need someone who can define the current challenges, because as you know, we're in the midst of a housing crisis in America. Affordability is a real issue for many Americans. Many Americans and Black and Brown Americans most acutely are paying nearly 50% of their take-home pay for housing in this pandemic. Too many Americans on the brink of eviction or foreclosure. And those are just some of the top line challenges that we face. And I want to see a Marcia Fudge, and I think she will, who will bring intelligence and compassion and be higher profile. We didn't hear from Ben Carson much. I don't know if he was muzzled. I don't know if he was not invited. I don't know if he chose not to, if you will, exercise his role as a spokesperson for housing and urban affairs. But it's more important to talk about Marcia Fudge than it is to talk about Ben Carson. Because notwithstanding my comments about Ben Carson, as a HUD secretary, I have great, if you will, respect for his work as a neurosurgeon. His work as a neurosurgeon stands out for what he did and for when he did it as an African-American neurosurgeon who did some highly complex work and was renowned for that important work. And I think that is who he is, more than he was sort of a cabinet officer running an agency that his work, his professional work did not necessarily prepare him to do.
That said, with Marcia Fudge coming in, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, do you have any advice, or have you had any conversations with her about affordable rental housing post-pandemic?
Yeah, we've had brief conversations when she was initially nominated, extensive conversations, and my suggestion to her is the country needs a housing strategy, a comprehensive housing strategy, affordable rental, affordable home ownership, and it needs, I think, a comprehensive strategy for local communities, urban communities, big and small, because HUD is about housing and urban development, which is about economic development. It's about jobs. It's about community economic development. So what I feel we'll get with Marcia is a seasoned person who served as a mayor, certainly someone whose leadership credentials are sort of unmatched. She was the national president of Delta Sigma Theta. For those who don't know what Delta Sigma Theta is, or who don't understand, that is a demanding leadership job to lead, literally hundreds of thousands of highly intelligent professional Black women in one of the most important legacy, if you will, organizations in our nation. And that's what Delta Sigma Theta is, a sorority, but a social action organization. And also her work on Capitol Hill as a member of Congress and as a leader and chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. So I think that we need a comprehensive strategy around housing. We need to think about this as housing is about dignity. It is about survivability. It is about quality of life, but it's also about jobs and economic development. We build communities. And I think you know this, by building, repairing, renovating housing. We build the health and vitality of communities. We build wealth by and through home ownership. So, I'm hopeful that there's going to be a renewed focus on this, an elevated focus on this. And I've shared with Secretary Designee Fudge the commitment that I have and the commitment that the National Urban League has to work hand in glove with her on these issues.
That's it. What is the role of banks and other housing lenders post-pandemic? And I knew he was going to shake it. And I know you have an opinion.
I think that the banks have learned that
Not all of them. Not all of them.
Some of them have learned. I mean, and I would encourage them not to foreclose with haste. Not to foreclose with haste. When rapid foreclosures, and this is where the banks need cooperation from regulators and investors, right? You foreclose with haste and you leave hollowed out neighborhoods and communities. You leave a minefield behind of urban devastation, abandoned buildings, abandoned houses, lots and grass. The banks have got, and the regulators have to be involved in this, have to create running room for homeowners in this pandemic. Look, Chris, the slowdown, if people are behind on their mortgages now, the overwhelming number of them is pandemic related. I lost my job. My partner or spouse lost their job. I have become ill and have extraordinary medical expenses. This is a different kind of recession. And that's why I have great confidence that if we can get beyond the pandemic, which is why we need this COVID relief bill, we need an aggressive effort to make sure that the vaccine is accessible and available, then I think we can have a bounce back, an economic bounce back in the country. And the banks, I want them to be sensitive, compassionate, understanding, and also practical about this. A lot of these mortgages, people fall behind. You can reform the mortgage, extend the term, put the delinquent payments on the back end of the mortgage, right? Let them be caught up and catch up. We got to find ways, right, to help people remain in their homes, understanding that the devastation of this COVID is no fault of their own. And the government and the way in which it was handled over the last, 10, 11, 12 months has been reprehensible and took a bad situation and made it worse.
Home, where my thoughts escaping. Home, where my music's playing. Home, where my love lies waiting silently for me.
Have you seen any banks step out on the forefront of trying to develop those types of initiatives to be helpful to consumers?
I'll say it's fair to say I've heard talk, discussion. I'm not sure I've heard any particular announcements. Okay. And I have heard from some banks, I don't want to name them, a desire to be more understanding and to look at things on a case-by-case basis. I mean, we have to encourage that, but it also requires the support of regulators, because regulators put pressure on banks to deal with delinquencies, right? They put pressure. So it's got to be a hand-in-glove approach. That's why we need Marcia Fudge. We need the Biden administration to grab this issue by the hands. But in the COVID bill, there's foreclosure, a foreclosure freeze, a rent or eviction freeze. We've also been fighting for a $25 billion housing rescue fund for homeowners, $100 million in housing counseling to give people the coaches and the counselors they need to negotiate with the mortgage holders. So this COVID relief bill is not going to solve this crisis, but it will help to cushion the shock and alleviate and give us a bridge to a better situation.
Shifting a little bit with HUD still, based on the fact that some of the housing discrimination rule rollbacks. What kind of housing discrimination is the Urban League seeing across the country at this point?
It runs, housing discrimination now runs from the overt to the covert. One of the things you see all too often is steering
Right.
by real estate agents, steering by rental real estate agents who steer Black families and Black couples into certain neighborhoods. We see mortgage steering Black couples and Black individuals into higher priced mortgages. You still see those kinds of practices. And that's going to require tough enforcement because these practices don't always meet the naked eye. But you hear about them, you see them, they are reported to us. And in some cases, people know they've been discriminated against, but they don't want to report it. Some people. They want
Well,
to move on.
it's time. Sometimes it gets consideration of time intensity and all the things that you just talked about.
Exactly.
Going to work, taking care of the kids, and all that stuff.
And we understand that. We understand that when you live with implicit and explicit racism, you can't fight every battle. Or you'd be fighting 10 times a day. But I think the previous administration basically didn't enforce at all, and this administration has to enforce. And sometimes when you enforce after no enforcement, it seems like the enforcement is overly aggressive. No, it's not overly aggressive. Look, there are legions and legions of studies that document the discrimination that Black people face, and in other instances, people who are of Latino descent face when it comes to the housing market. So we need enforcement, we need awareness. But Chris, what I really want to see is an aggressive effort to include housing in a new infrastructure bill. To really put a marker down and say, let's put some money so we can build more housing, renovate more housing. We have not built housing in this nation in the last 15 years at the clip, at the pace, with the speed with which we had been doing it for the previous 40 years. And so the supply is shrunk. So that always puts upward pressure on prices in the rental market and in the home ownership market. So we gotta deal with that. Infrastructure can't just be a concrete paving or an asphalt paving program or bridge building program. It also has to include housing. It has to include, if you will, water systems, a la Flint. It has to include community centers and schools and libraries and parks, all the things we need in communities.
You just made me, you saying that made me think about the Alaskan Bridge to nowhere, because that's basically what you're talking about if you don't. That's it. I'm an urban leaguer, proud to be, or been for a long time. We've had those discussions. Some of your chapters have some very vigorous housing programs. Are there any particular ones that pop in your mind immediately that you like to highlight?
We West Palm Beach. These are projects I've seen. Pittsburgh. We've got about 15 that do actual development of properties and development of housing. But the most significant and the largest thing we do is housing counseling. So we provide about support to about 30 to 35,000 people a year in the housing counseling space. Of that 35,000, we're producing approximately 2,000 to 3,000 new homeowners each and every year. And that's some of the work I'm proudest of, because I think the broad-based impact of someone learning how to navigate the housing market, how to make a smart decision about when to buy, where to buy, how to finance, has long-term ramifications. It's about giving people tools to protect themselves, to advocate for themselves. And that's what our housing counseling work is all about. So we've got tremendous, and I might add that the National Urban League has a big project we're doing in New York City. We are building a new building on 125th Street. It's a mixed-use building. It will include our new home, our new headquarters. It will include a civil rights museum, New York's first ever civil rights museum. It will include retail space, high quality retail space, and it will include 127 units of affordable housing.
Okay.
So we are, I believe that the Urban League has, we practice what we preach what we practice, we preach ownership, we have to practice ownership. And about 70% of my affiliates at the local level own their own headquarters buildings. And so, the legacy of the National Urban League is we're stakeholders in neighborhoods and in urban communities.
Next one. I know you're pressed for time. I know I'm going over, but I have Teddy McDaniel coming on after you to follow up on all the local issues that you don't hit
this morning. Yeah.
Okay. Project Reach, Andrew Moss. I had him on a couple months ago, and you're very active with that project to help save Black banks. You're a busy man.
Yeah. Let me say this about Andrew Moss. Andrew Moss has been a steady ally within the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And we have to recognize and lift up the role that people play who are inside the government, who are consistently working to ensure that the government is responsive to and in continuous communications with. So, Andrew Moss for over a decade and a half or 20, I've probably known him almost 20 years, has been that kind of person. And, the bones of Project Reach, which began last year, I'm hopeful they're going to be reaffirmed by the incoming comptroller, whomever that will be, and expanded and strengthened because the Black financial institutions in the United States, we have Black commercial banks, we have Black investment banks, need to have the unqualified support of the government and regulators and others, because it's a way to grow the economy in Black communities, but it's also a way to grow wealth.
The last thing I'm going to ask you about, and I'm going to allow you to roll through the points that you may not have captured yet. The Main Street Marshall Plan developed by the Urban League, which a lot of the topics that we may have already discussed. But specifically, I want to ask about how does the Office of Consumer Financial Protection, which was gutted during the last administration.
I'll be speaking in a few days, I think, with the new person who's in charge there now. That agency needs to be provided with the independence to do its job and to not be politically interfered with. And it was unfortunate that it was gutted. And it needs to be assertive, it needs to be aggressive, it needs to be fair, but it needs to protect people. I've learned something working from home during the pandemic. This home phone rings half a dozen, 8 to 10 times a day. 80% of the calls are some telemarketer scammer telling me about my car warranty, telling me about my credit card, my computer, my Amazon account, scamming, telling me there's a problem, I need to do this, I need to do that. There are so many people out here trying to prey on people and senior citizens. We need a policeman. We have to have a consumer police agency, watchdog agency that's going to protect people, because there's just a lot of bad actors. And I laugh because, I can sniff them out the minute they call and they say, please provide me, I'm verifying your social security number, right? I'm saying, well, may I ask you a question? Can I please ask you where you got my phone number from? Right? Let me ask you a few questions. And ultimately, they end up hanging up. But this is what people are dealing with in communities across the nation. CFPB, for that reason and many more, is really effective. And I'm hopeful that they will get back to their original intent as a protector of people and a protector of consumers.
I appreciate your time. I know you're always busy.
Yeah,
Thanks,
give Teddy my best. I talked to Teddy about 7:15 this morning. He buzzed me on something, and appreciate his energy and appreciate you. And we'll do this again.
Yes, sir. Thanks for helping make my audience
And
really savvy.
so Teddy McDaniel and James Perry, my leaders in the great state of North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep lifting them up.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
God bless you. Thank you.
You too.
You know how to help your clients find the home of their dreams. And we know the perfect mortgage can make that dream come true. We are Guarantee Rate Affinity, a joint partnership between the third largest retail mortgage lender and your company. We're here to help you look good to your clients and sell more homes. How? First, we make the process as simple, seamless, and awesome as possible. And that starts with our expert loan officers. You might have met some of them as they work alongside Coldwell Banker agents. Clients love our easy digital mortgage, which can have them ready to make an offer in minutes. We have over 100 loan products with some of the fastest turn times in the industry. And because our loan experts are fueled by the most advanced mortgage technology platform, we can help you and your clients at any time, from anywhere. Plus, you'll love tools like Loan Status Monitor that keeps you in the know, and Flash Close that shortens closings from hours to minutes. Above all, we're committed to the belief that your success is our success. So, when a buyer needs a mortgage referral, bring it home to the loan officers who work right alongside you to get dream homes closed. We are Guarantee Rate Affinity, and we are your mortgage company.